Do you even lift?" They said it like a verdict. 3 of them, stripped to the waist on the bright angel trail, sweat already shining on shoulders that had taken years to build, calling it down the switchbacks at a lean man who had just passed them going the careful way. Slow, covered, drinking before he was thirsty. He did not answer them. He did not need to. The canyon was going to answer for him. Welcome back to Doomed Departures. What you are about to hear is a composite story. It is built from real patterns, real heat, and real rescues logged by the people who work the Grand Canyon. But the 3 men at the center of it are an invention, assembled from 1,000 versions of the same loud morning. No real person is named here. The men are a dramatization. The danger is not. You have met them anyway, maybe at a gym, maybe at a trailhead, maybe in a mirror on a morning you would rather forget. 3 friends who had decided somewhere along the way that being strong and being safe were the same thing. They are not the same thing. The canyon was about to explain the difference in the only language it speaks. The ranger had seen the type before. He had worked the South Rim for the better part of 15 years, long enough to read a parking lot, and he had read theirs before they reached him. 3 big men spilling out of one truck, music still going. The easy noise of people who had never once been somewhere that did not bend to them. He met them at the trailhead the way he met everyone, without judgment, with the same flat warning he gave the marathoners and the grandmothers and the kids on spring break. He pointed at the sign first, an extreme heat warning posted that morning, the kind the Park Service does not post lightly. Then he told them the thing that matters most, the thing almost nobody believes until it is too late to believe it. The way down is the easy part. The canyon hides its danger on purpose. The climb back out in the afternoon heat with nothing left in the tank is the part that kills. One of them thanked him. 2 of them were already laughing. They were not laughing at him exactly. They were laughing at the idea that a sign or a man in a flat hat could have anything to teach a body that could move the kind of weight they could move. He watched them go down. He had watched a lot of people go down. He always remembered the ones who laughed. They were not interchangeable, the 3 of them, though the canyon would make them so by the end. One was the loud one, the one who set the tone, who had organized the trip the way he organized everything, through sheer volume of certainty. One was quieter, half a step behind the others all morning, the kind of friend who goes along because going along is easier than the conversation it would take to stay home. And one had his phone out the whole way, narrating, filming, already composing the post in his head, because for him the canyon was not a place, it was a backdrop. None of them was a bad man. They were 3 people who had spent years being rewarded for confidence and never once punished for it. The canyon does not care whether you are a bad man. It only cares what you carried. And here is the question that sits at the bottom of every rescue log this canyon keeps. Why is it so often the strongest people in the parking lot who do not come back up? The trail down does not threaten you. That is the trap, the whole trap. It rewards you. Every switchback opens a wider view, the air cools as you drop, and the rim falls away behind you like a problem you have already solved. The 3 of them took it like a victory lap. They had stripped down at the first bend, shirts tucked into waistbands, because when you have built something through years of work, the inner gorge feels like a stage, and the heat feels like applause. They moved fast. They passed everyone, including the lean man. He was maybe 40, dressed for the sun in long sleeves and a wide brim, moving at a pace that looked almost lazy, sipping from a hose clipped to his shoulder before anything in his body told him to. To 3 men flying downhill on fresh legs, he looked slow. He looked soft. He looked, frankly, like an easy target. So one of them said it, grinning, the way you say, a thing you are certain is harmless. Do you even lift? The lean man smiled, a small, private smile, and let them pass. He had hiked this canyon a dozen times. He knew exactly what he was looking at. He was looking at the way down. He was not looking at the way up, because the way up had not started yet, and the way up is where the canyon does its accounting. What they could not see, flying past him, was that the lean man was the clearest warning the trail had offered them all morning. Not a sign this time, not a ranger. A person doing exactly the right thing in plain view at the same temperature on the same trail, and they had looked straight at him and read him as weakness. The canyon posts its warnings in the form of the people who are doing it correctly. They had just sneered at theirs and kept walking. Here is what none of the three of them knew, because nobody had ever made them care to learn it. Muscle is expensive to carry and expensive to run. Every pound of it burns more energy at rest than fat does, and in extreme heat, that constant furnace does not bank down. It runs hotter. A heavily built body generates more internal heat just by existing, and more internal heat means more cooling required. And out here, the only cooling a body has is sweat, and sweat is water. And water is the one thing none of them had bothered to carry, because muscle stores none of it. They had carried the bodies. They had not carried the fuel those bodies burn in the heat. The biggest engines on the trail had arrived with the smallest tanks. The Park Service has a name for what the canyon does to the logic of a hike. They call it an inverted mountain. On an ordinary peak, you climb while you are fresh and come down on what you have left, the hard part behind you when your body is most spent. Here, it is upside down. You go down into it strong, spending more than you notice, and you reach the bottom already taxed. And then the real mountain begins, straight up, in heat that builds by the hour, the rim a vertical mile overhead. The ranger had said it in plain words at the top. The climb back out is the part that kills. They had laughed before he finished the sentence. Noon came and went. The ranger's voice, if any of them still carried it, would have been telling them to turn around by now. They did not turn around at noon. They had momentum, and the river was close, and momentum feels exactly like strength right up until the second it runs out. They reached the bottom flushed and grinning, and they emptied a good share of what little water they had, and they took the photos, the three of them at the river with the walls climbing into white sky behind them, and not one of them did the math that the lean man had done in his head at the rim. How much water? How much heat? How many hours up? The river at the bottom is a particular kind of cruelty. After the heat of the descent, the Colorado runs cold and loud and green, and standing beside it, a body cools and a mind resets. And for a few minutes, the whole thing feels survivable, feels easy, feels won. The river is the last LI the canyon tells you. It lets you feel recovered right before it asks for everything back with interest, on the only road home, which goes straight up into the worst hours of the day. The climb back up began the way the dangerous things always begin, gently, almost pleasantly. The first switchbacks out of the gorge were fine. Their legs were tired in the familiar way, loaded and heavy, the way legs feel after a hard session, and that familiarity was its own quiet lie because they had felt this before and walked it off before, and the canyon is not a session. The canyon does not end when you decide you are done. The sun was overhead now, and the walls had turned on them. The same rock that had cooled them on the way down was radiating, sandstone and limestone, holding the morning's heat the way a cast iron pan holds it, releasing it in waves from every direction at once, from above, from the sides, from the trail beneath their feet. The shade that had been generous at dawn had swung with the sun and left almost nothing. The applause they had felt on the descent was gone, and in its place was a furnace with no door. The biggest engines burned through their water first, exactly as the math promised. One of them stopped talking, which for him was the loudest thing he could have done. Their hearts climbed and stayed climbed, working 2 jobs at once, driving blood to the skin to dump heat and driving the same blood to legs that were begging for it, and there was not enough blood for both. The sweat that had been pouring off them at the river thinned to almost nothing, which feels like relief and is the opposite of relief. It is the body rationing the water it no longer has. Their pace fell apart. They began to argue, then stopped arguing, which is worse. They sat down in the thin shade of a boulder, all 3, and looked up at a rim that did not look any closer than it had an hour before. There is a point in heat like this where the problem stops being the legs and becomes the mind. As the core climbs past what the body can shed, thinking itself begins to slip. Judgment goes first, and then the sense that anything is wrong at all, which is the cruelest part, because the person in the most danger is often the last one able to feel it. A man who would have turned around an hour earlier if he could have thought it through keeps climbing instead because the part of him that knew how to be afraid has quietly gone quiet. They did not panic at the end. That is not mercy. It is the heat taking the alarm bell before it takes anything else. That is the moment the canyon collects what it is owed. Not at the bottom, where everyone feels strong. Here, on a switchback in the worst of the afternoon, when 3 strong men do the arithmetic for the first time and watch the arithmetic come back wrong. They had water for one of them maybe for part of the way. They were 3. The rim was a vertical mile up through the hottest hours of the day, and the thing they had trained their whole lives to trust, the thing that had answered every demand they had ever made of it, did not answer this one. Strength is the ability to move a load. It is not the ability to make water out of nothing. The canyon had been waiting at the bottom of that distinction the entire time. One of them had a phone with a single bar. He made the call. His voice is calm at first, then not calm. The calm of a man who has just understood the shape of the afternoon. Search and rescue launched within minutes because the people who work this canyon do not wait to be sure. They move. They had staged water and gear at the rim before sunrise the way they do every July day, because July in the inner gorge does not surprise the people who live with it. It surprises only the people who visit it, certain they are the exception. The rescuers went down fast. The canyon is faster than any rescuer when it has already started, and it had started hours earlier, somewhere around the moment 3 men laughed at a sign. They are good at this, the people who do it, better than anyone should ever have to be, and they will tell you the hardest rescues are not the ones where something went wrong. They are the ones where nothing went wrong at all, except a single decision made hours ago and 1,000 feet down by someone who felt completely fine at the time. Have you ever been so sure of one strength that you stopped checking for the weakness right next to it? A skill that made you feel untouchable, right up until it turned out to be the wrong skill for the moment. Tell me in the comments, because the canyon does not grade you on the strength you brought. It grades you on the one you forgot. They were found over the following day, not far apart, high enough on the trail to show how hard they had fought to climb and far enough from the rim to show it was never going to be enough. There is nothing graphic about it and nothing merciful about it either. The official cause for all 3 came back the same: environmental heat, the most preventable killer in the entire park, and the one that takes the most. No fall, no bad luck, just heat and time and water that was never carried, and a warning that was laughed off at the top of a trail by men who had every physical gift except the one the canyon was asking for. The lean man they had asked, "Do you even lift?" walked out of the canyon that evening fine, Tired, sun-touched, unremarkable. He had turned around early. He had rationed his water. He had treated the heat like the serious thing it was because he had been here before, and the canyon had taught him gently the lesson it teaches other people all at once. He heard about the three of them later, the way everyone hears these things, and he did not feel vindicated. There is no winning a thing like that. He just remembered the grin and the question and how certain they had been. If a story like this makes you check your own certainty, even a little, then do the small thing that keeps these going, like this video, so it reaches the next person who is about to laugh at a sign, and subscribe. So you are here for the next one, not for a number on a screen. For the simple act of being one more person who hears the warning and takes it seriously. That is the entire point of this channel. The ranger at the rim heard the outcome the way he had heard too many of them. He did not say that he had told them so, because there was no one left to say it to, and because it had never been about being right. He had stopped arguing with the loud ones a long time ago, and people sometimes take that for not caring. It is the opposite. He had simply learned the one thing the canyon taught him that he could never quite hand to anyone else. The canyon makes the argument better than he can, and it makes it only once, and it makes it at the worst possible time to be hearing it for the first time. He had come to the canyon young for a single season, and stayed because the place got into him the way it gets into the people who respect it, and across 15 years he had warned thousands and carried the memory of the few he could not reach. He did not file those losses as failures. He had learned that the warning is the only part that belongs to him. What a person does with it belongs to them and to the canyon. He went back to the trailhead the next morning and met the next truck and gave the same warning in the same flat voice to people who would or would not listen. That is the whole job. You warn them. You cannot make them carry the water. The canyon has taken people from every group you could name, young and old, trained and untrained, the fittest people in the parking lot and the most fragile. The common thread is never strength, and it is never conditioning, and it is never how much anyone could lift. It is the gap. That specific fatal distance between what a person is sure they can do and what the canyon actually indifferently asks. Do you even lift? In a gym, it is a real question with a real answer. And the answer those three men could give was genuinely impressive. Years of work stood behind it. The canyon does not diminish that. It does something stranger and more final. It changes the question. Because in the inner gorge at 110 degrees, nobody is ever going to ask you how much you lift. The canyon asks one question and only one, and it asks it of the strongest body and the weakest body in exactly the same voice. How much water are you carrying? The lean man had an answer. The three men who laughed at him did not. That was the entire difference between walking out and not walking out. The rim looks exactly the way it looked that morning. It always does. The canyon does not post their story on the sign. It does not raise the railing or rewrite the warning. It simply sits there, enormous and patient and beautiful, in a way that makes the danger impossible to believe until you are standing inside it, with the heat coming at you from every side. Every single year, thousands of people stand at that trailhead and feel precisely what those three felt. That bright, certain, morning sense that the rules were written for someone softer. Some of them read the sign and believe it. Some of them do the honest math on water and heat. And some of them are already laughing, already asking the slow, careful hiker the only question they know how to ask, never once hearing the question the canyon is about to ask back. This has been Doomed Departures. Stay safe, and we will see you on the next one.